All right.
All right.
3, 1, 2. I think we're live.
Okay, welcome to the TRI312 Try in the Shy Multisport Monday. Our podcast is where our local triathlon coaching crew, with over 100 years of both racing and coaching experience, are here to share endurance sports news, coaching tips, and entertaining content about the urban triathlete experience here in Chicago with swimming, cycling, and running, everything here in Chicago.
So we'll update you on local races, local training locations, and features on local businesses that support the diverse urban Chicago multisport community in the city of Big Shoulders.
Yeah, we'll even bring on sometimes guest speakers, including coaches, clubs, and charity partners and local charities that are involved in multisport training. So if you have any thoughts on who you would like us to bring on the show, let us know as we get new content published pretty much every week. And if you like us, if you like what you hear, make sure that you like and subscribe to all our social medias at TRI312 Triathlon, as we bring you the latest updates every week.
All right. And today we are going to start talking about triathlon swag, triathlon garb, tri gear, things that we receive as athletes fairly frequently at the different races and events that we attend. I know for me, I even will go to a race specifically for the awesome tri swag that is available complimentary to athletes. But of course, for a lot of events, they also will sell great gear, hats, t-shirts, warm-ups, hoodies, all of the things. But our start of the conversation today is there any particular swag that you seek out at a race, and or what is the best swag you've ever received at a race, and did you go to said race because of it?
So there's 3 items I always seek out when I go to a race: a water bottle, as if I need any more, a coffee mug, again, as if I need any more, and a visor, because I don't wear hats. But the best swag I've ever gotten, and I didn't know it was in the swag bag, was waterproof lipstick from the Danskin Women's Triathlon. If any of the ladies know or remember this race, the gear had in there red lipstick. It didn't come off in the swim. So, train ugly, race pretty.
Sometimes you just got to look good.
Yes,
right?
It's all about the pictures.
That's right. Chris?
I don't know. I've had a lot of good swag items over the years. I think some of my favorite ones were actually the South Shore Triathlon, which was my first ever triathlon. It was once taken over by Running Away Multisport, if you guys remember that, that group. And we got a full triathlon gear backpack.
Oh, God, I remember that.
I used that thing till it fell apart. Actually, I think I still have it. I use it for our clinics when we do bike skills clinics. And that was one of my favorite items, a full backpack for a swag item. How cool is that? Yeah, over the years, I've had quite a few. My favorite, I was just digging through my bag and I realized I got I ended up buying this one, but it was a windproof, rainproof hoodie from the ITU World Championships. And I keep this in my bag all the time because if I ever get caught and it's raining outside, I can always reach into my bag and toss that thing on. And it's a handy item, a functional handy item. That's good to have. So
nice.
That's one of my favorite swag items. For
cool.
Sure.
I wanted to bring up this topic because over the weekend, last week, as I was coming downstairs, getting ready to head out for the day, I had a nice little package sitting down at the bottom of our stairs, and I saw that it was from Dare to Try. And I'm a pace setter, monthly donation to the organization, and I forget for some reason all the time that they send out gifts and sort of thank you gifts every year to all of those that donate to their organization. And it's been great because it's a variety of different items each year. And this year was, for those of you listening on the podcast, it is a wonderfully fitted Dare to Try t-shirt that highlights their push toward the Paralympics for the in Paris. So it's a great looking t-shirt. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to put it on for today for our broadcast. But yeah, I think in terms of best swag that I've ever received, and the reason why I kept going back to this race was the Bigfoot up in Wisconsin.
Ooh.
And every single year, it was like the biggest surprise that when I first did that race, I think the first year I did it was a full cycling jersey. And it was, and I think I raced my first 70.3 in that cycling jersey. It fit so well, it looked cool. And then every year was something other, like another item that also was really cool. So also a transition bag. Yeah. It was a hoodie. I mean, it was just like every year it was like some amazing thing. I was like, for our entry fee, this is what we're getting for complimentary for this race. I was like, well, I think for as long as I possibly can, I'm going to continue to do the Bigfoot race. So if you guys are ever looking for great races, like sometimes it's good to know what's out there and what sort of quality swag that they put out there for you.
That was also Running Away Multisport.
That's right. That's right.
So we need to bring back Running Away Multisport. We need to find out what's been going on there. Bring them back.
So race directors, if you're out there, quality swag for when you are providing stuff to your race crews. So and athletes. So okay, what's next, Chris? What else we got?
All right. Well, actually, a good segue. I noticed I had this in my bag too, because we just kicked off our training this week for Team to End AIDS. So this is really week 1 of Chicago triathlon training season for most local triathletes. We're 16 weeks out. This is when you should really start to think about following a training plan. And we kicked off our training, and I realized I had, and it brings both last week's topic and this week's topic together, a Under Armour branded tri jersey, which is a swag item that our triathletes got the very first season we had Team to End AIDS here in Chicago, which was almost 15 years ago.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
It is.
So 10, at least 12,
no,
13, yeah.
It's 15.
14 or 15, yeah. Years ago. And I'm the head coach for Team to End AIDS, I should mention. So shameless plug there. But that's one of the main things I like to encourage beginners to think about is, when you sign up for an event, don't just look for the swag, although there's some great training programs and races that give great swag, but look for supportive training programs. And Team to End AIDS is just one of many. There's a couple other local charities that do training programs, and they do everything. You pay, I think for T2 right now, it's only $59 to join the team, and you fundraise. And they pay for your training costs, your race entry fee. You get swag like a tri jersey, and workouts every day of the week, pretty much.
Nice.
And so if anyone is interested, you can still sign up for T2. We ran out of our marathon entries, but we do have Chicago Triathlon entries. Workouts are starting tonight, actually, at Lakeshore here. Lakeshore always lets us use their space to do these podcasts. We always want to thank them whenever we can. And they're also one of our partners for our T2 training program. So we do our swim workouts right here in downtown Chicago. Mondays and Thursdays, we do bike and run workouts. We do weekend clinics. So it's a very comprehensive program. Next week, I think we're actually going to try to get one of the program managers or director of T2 to come on. But if anyone's interested in learning more, a shameless plug again, but we're kicking off at the AIDS Foundation of Chicago's offices in downtown Chicago this weekend on Saturday. We're kicking off the training for all of our athletes. So we have over 200 plus athletes this year already signed up between all the programs, marathon, half marathon, Chicago triathlon. We have some that do one-off races too, half Ironman, full Ironman. So I'd encourage anyone who's getting into the sport, especially beginners, find those programs where it really helps to make training fun. It becomes a social, thing for the whole summer. It gives you things to do every day of the week, pretty much. And you learn from not just good coaches, but also from other athletes, because that's really the best way to learn, is putting yourself in those environments where you can absorb training information from other folks.
Great. Joy, how long have you been working with them?
I believe with Chris, 15 years, I think.
Yeah, it's been pretty long. Coach
Yes.
Joy and I have headed up both the marathon and triathlon program for them. So we used to be, T2 was the official charity partner of the Chicago Tri. Also, if you're ever at some of the local running events, like the Chicago Spring Half Marathon coming up, the Chicago Fall Half Marathon, the Turkey Trot, and the Chicago Tri itself, we manage the beer tent at those races. So if you want to donate to a charity at all of those events, you can basically just make a donation and they give you a free beer. And so we have people who hang out all day after the races
free beer.
to get free beer. Oh, not free beer. You got to donate.
I mean, you have to donate, but still.
Usually the first beer is free, and then you get more for donating. But it's a fun social community. They also help manage the check-in at the Open Water Swim Chicago events that the Chicago Triathlon puts on. So yeah, there's no shortage of fun things that you can do when you get involved with a charity team.
Fantastic. Very cool. All right. Anything else you'd like to share, Coach Joy, about your experience with Team Dan Dates?
I wish when I started in this sport that there was a community, because the first year of me triathloning, which that's for a whole different story, I did it by myself. And it was hard. But when you're with a group, you have someone to hold you accountable. They're going to look out for you like, hey, why were you at practice? What's going on? You have a training partner, you have friends, and that community, if you can find a supportive community, please do so, because it makes your experience so much greater and you'll stay in the sport longer. Why am I still in the sport? I love the sport. But this is the make or break of, do I continue in the sport or just say a one and done?
Yeah, when you can have multiple reasons to stay motivated, that really makes the sport more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just for getting in shape and training or having a good race result, but meeting other people.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And having it be also like a mental stress reliever, you know, when you need it. It's always a fun way to make the most of your training experience, for sure.
And you have that added element of also doing something great, kind of something bigger than yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
So always being able to, like when I did my first Ironman race, I was also raising money for, I can't even remember now, but point is that being able to sort of like spread the wealth and knowing that you're sort of doing it for a sort of higher purpose or a greater goal than just the race itself, it just makes it just a little bit more special, right?
Yep.
And again, yeah, just having that extra community, I mean, it also helps kind of push you along a little bit more. And it's always great when you kind of see those, especially when you have your swag running out there. It's sort of those same jerseys that are out there when you're especially like out there on the bike or you're running past or next to each other out on the run course. Being able to give someone like a little fist bump or a little high five helps give you just that little extra boost each time.
I like it just for the distraction when I'm out there running hard and trying to find ways to stay focused and motivated. I intentionally look for other charity teams and athletes, and I try to cheer them on. You know, like go T2, you know, go Dare to Try. It's a fun way to keep yourself motivated in the middle of a race.
Yeah, it is a little odd that we kind of default to like whenever we see, and whether you know this person or not, and most times probably not, but you recognize, hey, that's somebody I see, or it's a team I recognize from the Chicagoland area. It's like, I'll say like, hey, way to go, Tri Monsters, because I'll see those jerseys still out there.
Yep.
Way to go, 4-Star. Way to go, Team AIDS. Way to go, Dare to Try. Whoever, like I'll see Chicago Tri Club out there all the time.
We see each other on the path like every weekend. It's like, and you end up knowing like, hey, I see you all the time.
Yeah.
What's your, like, you know, you're stopping for water at the water trough and you're like, oh, hey, how you doing? And you get to just know folks and you end up making new friends.
Good conversation starter.
Yeah, 100%. All right.
So speaking of conversation starters and fun things.
Love a good segue.
Yes.
I wanted to kind of tie what we talked about last week with what we have coming up soon. So last week, we had Julian on the show talking about his kind of experience in being an athlete in Chicago for many, many years, and now being an Under Armour brand ambassador. And he actually helped set up now on Saturday, May 18th. There is a fun run, a VIP shopping night, and a social hour at a next door bar and restaurant happening. So this is the evening before the Chicago Spring Half Marathon. So if you're a runner and you know that event, so that Saturday evening at the Under Armour brand store, 6 o'clock, we'll meet up. 6:15, we'll do a fun run, have an hour of shopping where you get a big discount on anything Under Armour, basically, followed by a social hour at, I think, 8 o'clock,
Yes.
right around the corner. So if you're not doing anything on Saturday night and want to meet some other people, a few of us will be there. Some of our charity athletes, some of our friends. It's just an open community thing. So we'll put the link to the description. Julian created a Facebook event with all the details. You can find it there. And yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you there.
Fantastic.
And speaking of the spring half marathon, if you're a cyclist, we still need cyclists to help with the event. Chris?
Yeah. There's actually, speaking of volunteering and charities, there's two good opportunities that weekend as well. So May 19th is the Chicago Spring Half Marathon. I think the event is actually sold out.
It is sold out.
At least for the half marathon distance. So it's a big kind of, spring kickoff of the running season before marathon training starts. Our charity team is managing the beer tent there. So we
will be there.
Welcome volunteers to come help out at the beer tent. You can get fundraising credits if you're a T2 athlete to your own fundraising just by volunteering there.
Or a friend of a T2
Or you
athlete.
can recruit your friends, yep. So if anyone wants to help out with beer, we can arrange that. But also I help volunteer with the race directly, so unaffiliated with T2, but just on our own, part of our TRI312 community and 4-Star Endurance. We help provide bike leads at the race. And we just basically go out in front of the field, just make sure the path is clear and safe for the runners, cheer them on, radio back updates and that sort of thing.
Nice.
So if any multi-sport athletes out there, any triathletes with bikes wants to not run the race, but be at the race, you can come join me. You can sign up if you go to the chicagospringhalf.com website, go to the volunteer section, and you can sign up for the bike lead role. And I think we're going to start doing that at more and more events. So we'll have a TRI312 tent at the events. Come say hello, hang out. And the more you volunteer, we're going to actually start to do a perks program. So speaking of swag, we will give you swag when you volunteer as a bike lead. So one more
we got some good hot TRI312
Maybe that's what we should do as a swag, a TRI312 hat.
Man, I'm a sucker for a good hat too. So yeah.
And visors will be coming soon.
Yes.
The all-important visor.
Yes.
Yes, we cannot forget the visor, folks.
But before we get ahead of ourselves with the upcoming weekends, a quick recap from this past weekend as well, right? We had a nice event we helped volunteer at again with one of our friends and coaches, Jillian Forsyth. She's the owner of BFF Bikes, and they had a garage sale. There were some pretty cool deals going on there where people are selling their equipment, whether it was bikes, whether it was just random bike parts, triathlon gear. We had wetsuits. We had a lot of fun items, and it was a fun way for beginner triathletes to get stocked up. So I don't know if you guys noticed anything or had anything.
Well, first of all, for those of you listening on the podcast, we do have a video up behind us right now where it sort of shows some of the highlights from that weekend, what the setup looked like. And if you ever want to come back to our TRI312 YouTube channel, go ahead and check that out. We also have a short with a quick interview that Chris did with the owner, Jillian, and just talks about their history of how long they've been going for now. It seems to be sort of hopefully now an annual event in May that they are going to be showcasing and being able to help out charity partners by way of many of their partners and customers donating and selling gear, as Joy had pointed out, selling gear so they could buy more tri-gear for future races. But it was a great event. In fact, my old backstairs neighbor was there. He works for Giant Bikes, and it was great to see that our community, as big as Chicago is, it really is a small town, right? It really has this weird small town still feel to it. And for those of us in this endurance community, you kind of start seeing people fairly frequently. And it's great when you kind of feel like no matter where you go or what event you go to, you kind of see a lot of the same people and get to know them and just say, just introduce yourself and, kind of get a better feel for what's out there and what they may be doing, and maybe be able to hang out and get some new tri gear, some new wetsuits. You had bike parts that they were selling or promoting, or people had donated. Bike saddles, tires, shoes, sunglasses. I mean, you name it. There was a lot of stuff there. So hopefully, if you weren't able to get a chance to go by there this past weekend, then for maybe just sort of mark on your calendar or cue in to when race season begins, maybe check out when BFF Bikes does their garage sale again. And it's another way to grab some gear, especially for those that are starting out into the sport. We have chosen a very expensive hobby. It can add up really quick, but if you have events like this, then you can find a lot of things with very inexpensively to set yourself up to succeed for that first race.
Yeah. There were some I actually picked up, I wasn't planning on buying a lot of stuff, but I ended up finding a $400 pair of cycling shoes for $50.
Nice.
So I had to jump on that. Garmin bike computers, that was, anything and everything, multi-sport, and especially cycling related.
I came very close to convincing my mother, who is a super fan of Bianchi bikes, for getting that used to be $15,000, $2,000 on sale Bianchi bike. That was beautiful. I mean, just the race wheels alone were worth about that much, but almost came close. I think it was a little bit too big for her in terms of size. So.
Pencil, I would say anyone who's a triathlete looking to get rid of old gear or looking to get new gear, or someone new in the sport, look for these types of events. The Chicago Tri used to have a big gear swap they did annually. They did not do it this year.
Okay.
So this event, and if they do bring that one back in the future, those would definitely be two events, usually end of April and first weekend in May is typically when BFF does theirs. Best time to stock up on gear.
So Chris, Joy, from your perspective or what you know about sort of our community and being able to maybe do this on a more frequent basis, is there somewhere where new athletes can go if they miss an event like this, that they can go to possibly also find other gear on that's a little bit more inexpensive, or people that are donating that they can find out in the community? Is there a site, anything on Facebook that you guys are familiar with?
Not really.
There's some. Sometimes word of mouth.
Yeah.
If an athlete is looking for something, they might know someone who is selling that item.
Yeah, I know there are some kind of gently used or resale gear websites out there. Some that are triathlon or cycling focused, like the Pros Closet is one where you can sell your gear. They refurbish it and then sell it, so you can get good top end gear at lower prices. But there aren't enough. There definitely should be more. I've seen a couple companies try to start up a triathlon specific version of that. Haven't seen them recently though, so I don't know if there's any good dedicated ones. A lot of people just do Facebook Marketplace and that sort of thing.
Right.
But I would say one of the best ways of finding gear, whether you want to get rid of old gear and sell it, or to find gear, is to join a club or a community. There's a lot of different clubs and communities out there, and they have different, Facebook groups. In Team Den AIDS, we just tell people, hey, if you're looking for an item or you're trying to sell something, just post it in the group. And you'll usually find other people that are looking to buy or looking to sell. So I would say that's the best thing. Join communities like Chicago Tri Club, a charity team like Team Den AIDS, or just some of the general, local community Facebook groups or Slacks and Discords and those sort of areas. Yep.
Okay, great. Cool. All right, moving on. Our Coaches Corner. So talking about some other things going on in the swim, bike, and run community, and some tips that we're going to show when it comes to open water swim. Now that, fingers crossed, the Lake Michigan will be warming up more and more quickly. I say that very gently because it's still 55 degrees in the water, but we already have people venturing out.
We were out there running and we saw somebody swimming last week. And I'm dusting off my thermal wetsuit. I have a super cold water wetsuit that I'm hoping to use here in the next week.
So define that. What is super cold wetsuit?
I would say, it's swimmable, but uncomfortable if it's in the 50s.
Okay.
Once it gets to 60 degrees, you can swim longer distances.
Does it just mean it's like thicker neoprene, or what is the style?
Or a lot of wetsuits, have different thickness. Some also have different liners on the inside. So a thermal wetsuit generally will have more neoprene in general, but also a kind of a fleece-lined interior. So it actually traps the water a little bit better and it kind of keeps you warmer. and then thermal booties or a thermal swim cap.
Yep.
So a lot of little tricks out there too, like putting Vaseline on your forehead so you don't get the freezer or the
ice cream brain.
The ice cream brain headache.
I had not heard that before.
Yep, there's a
I'm
lot
today years old when I found out that hot tip.
Yep.
Right.
And also just bringing extra
jug of
water
water.
bottles, like a gallon water jug, and pre-filling your wetsuit.
There you go.
Your body will then warm that up and then make it more comfortable to swim. But yeah, in general, I would say the most important thing if you are thinking about getting out in the lake is to swim safe and practice good swim safety and good etiquette when you're out in open water.
Again, good reason to maybe join up with a crew or with a club, because we want to make sure that you're not swimming alone as well. Make sure there's at least one other person or a coach that has eyes on you out in the water.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have any specific tips. You know, I really like encouraging swim safety in open water, because for me, when I got into the sport, it was extremely intimidating. I did not feel comfortable going out in the lake, especially even with others, not just by myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are certain things you should always do, like wearing bright swim caps to make yourself visible, both to boaters and to people on the land. So if you do have an issue, you're easier to spot and also easier for lifeguards to see you. You should also only swim in Chicago, only swim during lifeguard hours. And so in Chicago, that's Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week. There are lifeguards on duty, and they monitor and support designated beaches and areas where you're allowed to do distance swimming, because there are some areas that have strong currents,
Right.
where it's not quite as safe. So it's good to know where those specific areas are, and then also to make sure that you actually swim there both by yourself, but also when you're swimming with other people. Use the buddy system ideally. Always swim with somebody else, and or at least let somebody else know when you're going out. It's like a family member, so they can always check in afterwards. But yeah, those are some of the kind of the basic ones. And then also so when I did my 100th triathlon, I started something I called the Ladybug Project, where I got a bunch of buoys. It started with buoys that looked like ladybugs, but any of these, they call them sometimes tow floats or swimming buoys. It's usually an inflatable little brightly colored item with a belt that you can wear around your waist, and it just drags behind you between your feet and your butt and makes you easy to be spotted when you're out swimming.
And I like the Zone 3 ones because there's others that they also sell that you can actually put a lot of your gear in. So if you don't want to leave it out on the beach, or if they say like a cubby is occupied down at Ohio Street Beach, you can put all of your gear in there, inflate it, and there you're just now carrying around all of your stuff with you. At least all of key
the
valuables
important
throughout.
stuff,
Yeah.
keys, wallet.
I still put a plastic wrap around a lot of the stuff. I don't want to get wet, like a phone or something like that. So just in case, if I didn't inflate it just right or roll it up just right, that those don't get terribly wet.
Yeah, putting an extra dry bag inside of a dry bag is a good way of doing that. But it's also a nice confidence builder. If you're someone who's nervous about swimming in open water, having that bright object, something that is not technically a life-saving device, but you can hold on to it.
Yeah.
Or if you need to put it between your legs, then you can just sit like you're sitting.
Yeah.
That's how I just sit on it, and it floats me a little bit higher in the water. It's easier to breathe, easier to spot other people. So I would definitely encourage most people, if you're swimming in Lake Michigan, especially longer distances, always have that. It might slow you down a smidge, but barely. And it's always worth it just from a safety perspective.
Yeah. My tip would just be, because a lot of those that sign up for the first time, they may also be doing a lot of just mostly pool swimming. At least get out no less than a few times, like once, twice, maybe 3 times, just to get the feel of what open water feels like, because swimming in a pool is nothing like swimming in open water. There are so many other variables that you can't really anticipate, but at least if you go out there and have that experience and just, be able to just let some of that anxiety dissipate just by getting out there, just letting your head submerge under the water, taking a few deep breaths, and just starting out in the shallows. So there's a lot of beaches that are able to be some of those designated locations, but they are also in an area where you can even just swim parallel to the shoreline. And it's shallow enough to where if you do have that anxiety come up, whether you're confident in the swim buoy with you or not, or you're not feeling as confident of that buoyancy that you're getting from a lot of those wetsuits, or if you're swimming without one, then at least you know, okay, I can just put my feet down, I can chill out, I can take a breath, and then resume. So start in the shallows, do a few laps parallel to the shoreline. You know, it reduces that anxiety, but it does help kind of get that feel for what does it feel like to maybe get pounded by waves, or if you have some other swimmers out there, just knowing that you're going to have to keep an eye on them. Where are they coming from? Especially if you're going, say, southbound, they're coming northbound, like we see often.
Yes.
Just even though it's a very large body of water, somehow two people always end up like swimming right into each other.
Yes,
Just, like,
or
causes you to
we've
swim into
experienced
each
that.
other.
One of the things I like to also point, if you're going to the shallow end, also something that can help alleviate your anxiety, count your strokes.
Yeah,
Like, okay, I'm gonna do 50 strokes.
that's good.
There we go. I got that. Okay, let me do 50 strokes back and just slowly add on to it. That was one of the tricks that I was doing for myself when I started swimming in open water 3 months before my first triathlon. I had friends who just left me because they were super fast. So to keep the anxiety down, sans wetsuit, I just counted the number of strokes I was doing, and it helped.
So we put a little map up here too. If those of you, if you're listening to the podcast, you might not see this, but if you're on the YouTube channel, you can kind of see, I would say, two of the more popular open water swimming locations in Chicago. Ohio Street Beach, which is right on the north end of Navy Pier, right downtown, where Ohio Street runs into the lakefront, is kind of the most popular location. And it's mostly because it is so optimal. You can swim along the wall. There are lifeguards every 100 meters or so.
Ladders.
There's ladders to climb out if you need to. It starts at the beach entry, and it's shallow. When I first swam it here in Chicago, the lake level, I didn't realize, goes up and down quite a bit, multiple feet. Some years it's lower, some years it's higher. Last year, I could stand on my tippy toes, at least, all the way out at the quarter-mile point. So you can swim a quarter-mile out and still stand. And the water level, I think this year is a little bit lower. So it might even be, for most people, if you're like at least 5'6" or so, maybe, you should be able to stand with your feet down almost all the way out to that quarter-mile buoy. And it used to be where the Chicago Tri actually was. The transition area used to be at Ohio Street Beach. The swim used to go actually from Oak Street down to Ohio Street. And so a lot of times people confuse those two. They think Oak Street is Ohio or vice versa. There's another swimming area from Oak Street to Ladder 1. And Ladder 1 is basically the first ladder south of North Avenue Beach. And so there's a lot of swimmers that like swimming there. That's deeper water. It's not protected by a break wall, so it definitely gets choppier there. But it's another good swimming location. So you swim from Ladder 1 to Oak Street and back is a good kind of mile or half-mile swim. And then down at Ohio Street Beach, swimming from Ohio Street all the way down the length of that, concrete bike and run path before the curve that goes towards Oak Street, is a really nice, safe place. There's buoys that separate boats. It's only for swimmers. There's lifeguards, there's ladders. But don't swim between those two areas. That curve is where there's a strong current.
Yeah.
And kind of like you mentioned, one of the best things you can do whenever you swim in open water is don't just jump in and swim in one direction, but swim in multiple directions. Like just go out, like Joy said, for 50 strokes.
Yeah.
Turn around and then come back.
Yeah.
And that way, hey, maybe the wind is stronger in one direction, or maybe there's just an underwater current that's stronger that makes it harder to swim in one direction. And if it's really bad, sometimes we'll even have people just swim in one direction, like walk down, jump in off a ladder, and then
swim back.
Or climb down on the ladder, not jump down. And so those are just different things that you can do to make open water swimming as safe as possible.
Yeah. And depending on the race you're going to, you're going to have lots of different variations of what that swim course is going to look like. It's going to be left-hand turns, right-hand turns, out and backs. For Chicago, you're going south, back northbound if you're doing the Olympic distance. The good news is that for those that are just doing the sprint, you just have a straight shot north. So, but there's a lot of different varieties of types of swim. So learn, be able to adapt, plus also knowing like if you have a tendency to breathe to one side and you happen to be going, say, southbound and it's early in the morning, knowing that how you deal with that sun glare coming out at you early in the morning. So it's going to be little things like that that you just cannot simulate or duplicate in the pool. But with regard to the swim stroke count, that should also help you remember maybe after a certain number of swim strokes to spot, make sure you're going straight.
Yes.
Because sometimes people change directions without even knowing it. And you're going zigzags versus trying to keep a straight line.
Or
So
the current is pulling you in one direction and you don't even realize it. And you're like, oh.
And a lot of times, like you're going to have a better swim, even if you feel like you're going a little bit slower, you're pulling up too frequently to spot, you'll probably end up having a faster swim because you're more efficient and you're staying closer to a straight line, even if there's little wiggles. But it's certainly, trust me from experience, that when you don't spot enough and you just feel like you get into that groove, you're like, man, I love swimming, this is great. And then all of a sudden you're out by the boats and they're like, dude, you need to go that way. So the less you zigzag, the straighter that line can be, the less total amount of distance you have to swim, and it will make for a much better performance.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those things you can practice in the pool before you even get in that.
That's what I was going to get to. Yeah,
because you know, you don't want everything to be brand new when you go out in water. And so I like to have our swimmers practice sighting.
Yes,
where you actually, as you're swimming, you practice lifting your head up to sight, and little tricks like looking at your hand under the water and then break the surface of the water to put your hand in relationship with the object you're swimming towards to make sure your body line is straight.
Yeah.
One other thing I like to do is close your eyes.
Yep.
Because, well, I'm blind as a bat when I swim. But what happens if your goggles fill up with water? What do you do? Do you flip on your back? Do you try to undo it? Just so you can know, am I truly swimming in a straight line, or am I going out over here? I'm going over here. I'm going over here. And we see it every time when we all work the Chicago Triathlon.
Yeah.
You'll see a person, they're not sighting, and you're trying to yell to them, and they're going right to the boats.
And one good way to test that in the pool is actually closing your eyes while swimming and try to swim blind. I like to have our swimmers try to do at least 5 strokes with their eyes closed, and then you open your eyes and make sure you're not about to run into the lane lines.
Yeah.
And then build up the point where you can actually do a full length of a pool, 25 yards. So start gradually, maybe just try 5 strokes at a time, maybe 10 strokes, and see if you can, correct any form imbalances you have that throw you off in any one direction.
And another trick for being in the pool, if your pool will allow this, have 4, 5 of you in one lane.
Oh yeah.
Swimming together. So you're not freaked out even before race day of people bumping into you, because it's going to happen. It's not they're trying to push you out the way. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're not meaning to do it.
We just did that last week in our swim class. So we had 3 people swimming down the lane together and trying to learn how to be comfortable near other people, learn how to draft off of other people.
Yeah.
And when there's contact, not freaking out.
That's great. Yeah.
So we have fun. We try to tickle each other's feet and like just, make it a silly kind of experience. Because if you can do that with friends before you go out in deeper water, the better prepared you'll be.
I think my wife she's a mental health therapist, and she would probably refer to some of this as like exposure therapy.
Yeah.
So that you're doing things that will happen in a triathlon swim that can cause high anxiety, especially if you have somebody that, whether on purpose or usually accidentally, like tickles your foot, grabs your foot, bumps into you. Like all of these things are going to happen. But yeah, when you have it in a controlled environment, do it in a pool with your other athletes, with your other teammates. When I used to coach at CAC, we would do it all the time, putting 3 or 4 in a lane. I'm like, okay, go. And just try to be able to understand like what that chaos feels like. And you don't really get a chance to experience it all that much. But the more you can put yourselves in those environments, try to simulate it as best you can, controlled environments. Then when you actually get out there on race day, and when it does happen, it's not a matter of if, but when. that you are prepared for it, that you have a tool in your toolbox to be able to deal with it. So like if the goggles pop off, like how is your strategy? What is your best strategy to adjust, get them back on, stay relaxed, and then keep moving
We
forward?
call it the plan B, practicing a secondary swim stroke that you can do.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing freestyle and you swallow water,
Yeah.
goggles get messed up, whatever happens.
Backstroke, breaststroke,
Yeah.
And
side stroke.
This is why you do all the strokes.
Yeah. and practice it in the pool.
Yeah.
Do a length where you swim 25 yards and maybe just do 5, strokes of freestyle, and then try to extend your arm, roll over your arm right into backstroke, and see how smoothly can you go from freestyle to backstroke without breaking your rhythm, or switching to breaststroke, or side stroke. Side stroke is another really good stroke to use, where you keep your head up out of the water pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
And that works really, really well. So practice the blind swimming, practice the contact drills, practice your plan B strokes.
I always think of the contact drills, the old Cliff Bar commercial,
Oh yeah.
where they're swimming and pummeling the water, and you're going through choppy water.
Yeah, we grab the pool noodles usually on the pool deck and start smacking people while they run.
Yeah, them like push kickboards into each other. Yeah.
Those are all really, really good drills to practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, so do that. And the only final one I'll mention too, the other thing that you can practice in the pool to get ready for open water is issues with breathing, like over exaggerating your breath and learning how to recover from a bad breath, like actually taking in a little water intentionally to just feel what it's like to get a little water up the nose or in the mouth, and then learning how to deal with that while continuously swimming and without it breaking your rhythm. And that actually plays in with sighting too. A lot of people don't think about the nuance of how to sight while you're taking your swim stroke.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people lift their head up, they breathe, and then they look forward, and then they re-enter the water while they're facing forward, and they end up getting water up their nose.
Yeah.
And so you actually want to practice doing the opposite. Lift your head up to sight first, then turn into your breath, and then put the head back in from the side to avoid getting water up the nose. So,
and pretty soon we're going to update when we start seeing the clinics come back around at Ohio Street Beach for Chicago, correct?
yep.
Actually, the first clinic is coming up on Tuesday, May 28th.
Yep.
So that is the actual first open water swim clinic.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure you sign up for those. They are filling up. The first couple are, I think, over 50 or 80%. There's weekend ones now. So Open Water Swim, or owschicago.com is the website for that. Those are the clinics where we practice the drills we were just talking about. We actually practice those out in open water in small groups. So for $20, I think, to sign up for those, it's a good.
And we'll have the link in the description below.
Yep.
And also, speaking about open water, for those who did register to enter the lottery for the Chicago River Swim.
Perfect segue for our swimming news now. Yep.
Look at your email. So sometime between now and late this afternoon, you will find out if you have been selected. It is Selection Monday for the Chicago Open Water River Swim. If you do get selected, you have 72 hours to respond. It's like a Mission Impossible. So if you did not get selected, you might still have a chance of getting in. So
the message will self-destruct.
Yes, it will.
It's nice they give them 72 hours though. That's good.
But yeah, Chicago River Swim, be an exciting new event this time for the first time.
Yeah.
Any other swimming news?
Yeah, so that's an event that's coming up. The next news is an event that just happened this past weekend, which we've been talking about on our previous podcast, which was the Illinois Masters State Meet in Munster, Indiana. Munster, Indiana, which, by the way, so it was held at the Munster High School. And I got to say, I don't think I've ever experienced being in a high school facility, although Evanston is actually pretty close, the township. But the Munster, Indiana facility was absolutely amazing. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, we have an image with me and some of my teammates with my BMC Performance Masters group that competed this weekend. But it is a 10-lane 50-meter Olympic-sized pool with stadium seating. It was impeccable. They were a great host. So thank you to Munster, Indiana, to the high school, to the Illinois Masters organization. Everything I think went really well. I mean, there was a few delays, but they were able to do it to where we had a split pool system. So on the south end of the pool, a women's event would be going on, and on the north side end, the same or next event for the men's would be happening, so that they were able to roll through events pretty seamlessly, and simultaneously. We had a great event, and just a couple of shout outs because you had all sorts of type of teams that were there, like those of us that were 6 members strong or under, and then all the way up to groups that had dozens of athletes, if not hundreds of athletes that were participating. But just a couple of shout outs for the team totals and the clubs that did extremely well. So shout out to the top team for the event, which was the Naperville Waves Swim Club. That accumulated just under 3,000 points for all their swimmers that participated. So the way that they do the point totals and scoring is that if you win your age group in an event, you get 11 points, and they point all the way down to 10th place. Like I think 1 through 6 got medals, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th all got ribbons. We got a few of those this weekend, which is really cool. This is the first time our group, and I even participated in a state master swim meet, and it was great. And some other folks that we want to shout out. So second was Elgin Blue Waves. And then third was the Chicago Swedish Fish. So a couple of partners of us that work out on the north side. In fact, where they do some of their Saturday swims is at Galter, right next to Swedish Covenant, which is just a few blocks from where my wife and I live in the Lincoln Square area.
I should do a shameless plug with that one, because some of those swimmers attended our tried out pool school. So I wonder if the pool school helped them.
Maybe. I think so. And then some other notables, Evanston North Shore came in 6th. Chicago Smelts was 5th. Our partners with Chicago Athletic Club's Masters team came in 7th. It was nice to see a lot of the CAC hats out there, having been a former CAC coach and Tri-Club coach. Let's see who else out there. Our Lakeshore Sport and Fitness came in 12th with just under 500 points in the event, and not coming in last.
Yes.
BMC Performance Masters, we were 32nd out of 40. So not bad for basically 3 swimmers participating in the event. So I was proud of our folks. We were updating our master swim group all weekend, and hopefully, and I think we actually have a few of our swimmers that they're a little hesitant about whether they can or even should participate in a master swim meet, that started to kind of maybe feel they got the bug and want to throw their hat in the ring for a future swim meet. So there was a lot of fun, and it was just good to be able to show them too that it wasn't just speed demons that were out there participating and mixing it up and competing in the events. You had swimmers and athletes all the way into their 70s and 80s doing these events, and we're crushing it, diving off the blocks. You know, you have some that don't want to dive off the blocks. They can just dive off from the pool deck, or you can even just start in the water. This is what I think is great about the Masters type of meets, is that, you know, whatever you need to do to put yourself out there and participate in the event, there's a lot of flexibility and range of how that can look.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are intimidated when they hear about, you know, masters swimming. They think you have to be a master of swimming,
like a former high school or collegiate swimmer, and that is not really the case.
Any adult, it has to be more with age than anything. It doesn't have to do with ability level.
Right.
And so you have people in their 90s even doing swimming, and you know, these events are pretty awesome. And it's kind of unique that the Illinois state meet is held in Indiana. But that just goes to show how nice of a facility they have there, and the reason why they bring that.
I mean, I will say, it's centralized more or less, because you have some folks that came in from all other areas of Chicagoland, but also Illinois. You had some folks coming up from Kentucky that were in Indiana. So you had a lot of different locations that were coming in to coalesce into this event and this meet. And based on the the amount of parking, and just the quality of the facility. I mean, it was a great event. I mean, it only really took us, 45 minutes sometimes just to get down there in the morning, a little bit longer on the way back. But I felt it was very worth it, and it was just kind of cool to see and be part of that experience. And see all ages from 18 up to like 70s, 80s, like I said, and men and women are across the board, just mixing it up and doing awesome.
And a good resource for people who are interested in getting into swimming and doing masters, swim meets and that sort of thing, is just becoming a member of US Masters Swimming.
Yeah.
USMS.org, I think is the website.
That is it.
Because you can find clubs there, you can find coaches there, training resources.
Find a club, and you'll just see like dots pop up all over Chicagoland. Sorry,
it's less than $100 to join.
I shifted the camera.
Got too excited there.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, and you'll see like dots pop up all over the city, and and there's for somebody like not necessarily us, but somebody like the who we just shouted out, the Swedish Fish. I mean, they actually have 3 different locations that they will have and days and times that they will do practices. Yeah. So it's good that there's variety, there's options, and so
they have a good website where you can find the different locations and different pools that have master swimming programs. Yeah. So definitely check out that website and get involved.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So switching from swimming news now to cycling news.
Anything going on this weekend?
So there's a lot of international events going on, but locally, one of the really, I think the only, one of 2 crit races, so bike criteriums. No, actually, I guess there's a couple more, but one of the few bike criteriums, and the criterium is simply a multi-lap bike race, a draft legal event where you get packs of cyclists like this drafting off each other, doing 30-minute to 1-hour races. They do it by age group, just like US Masters Swimming. Their events usually sanctioned by USA Cycling. And one of our local bike racing teams, one of the groups I help coach as well, XXX Racing Athletico, one of the most active and kind of one of the bigger local bike racing teams in Chicago. They help to produce events. They do a lot of grassroots stuff to create events for people to do, not just race themselves. So if anyone wants to volunteer this weekend, on Sunday, May 12th, up in Lincoln Park, if you know where the Montrose Beach is and then the Dog Beach, it's right there. It's a small little circuit. It's a fun little event to spectate. If you've never seen a bike race before, go check it out. You can volunteer, you can sign up and race. And that's kind of our local, one of the beginning races of the local bike racing season, at least on the road.
That's
now
cool.
There's ideally no more risk of snow in Chicago. The roads usually stay a little bit
fingers crossed,
better for racing. So it has snowed actually in we used to have this one back in April a few times. So
I was thinking May
could happen, but yeah, May usually we're in the clear by this point. But yeah, definitely check that out. And then through the summer, there's other bike races that happen around the area. There's one more big one that XXX also helps produce at the middle of summer. It used to be called the Intelligentsia Cup. Now it got rebranded to Chicago Grit. Mm-hmm. So chicagogrit.com for that one. But for this one, the Lincoln Park Criterium, you can just go to xxracing.org. They're a nonprofit team. And you can go and get the info, get involved, or just come on out down to the Montrose Dog Beach area on the north side of the Lakefront Trail.
Awesome. I was hoping and planning on taking my mom there for part of her Mother's Day gift. But apparently it turns out that she is leaving us on Mother's Day. Apparently we have family members that are graduating college, that have personally requested her. So I guess she's got to go do that. But so I may be going out there to support it on her behalf.
Moms have busy agendas on Mother's Day, busy schedules. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So from bike news to running news, Joy, do you have any running updates or?
Well, actually, again, on May 19th is the Chicago Spring Half. The half marathon is sold out and is waitlisted, but I believe the 10K is still open. So it's the kickoff right before Chicago Marathon coaching starts, which is Monday, June 10th. Get your calendars ready, but nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah, running season kind of, a couple big events coming up between that and then Soldier Field and then Chicago 13.1. And then we transition into full-on marathon training season that first week of June. Usually is when all the local groups start their marathon training. So we'll have track workouts and
all up and down Lakeshore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lakefront Trail gets busier, so get your cycling in now while it's not quite as busy yet. Cool. Awesome. And then triathlon news. So we wrapped up our indoor tri series. We're actually getting ready to launch, hopefully here in the next week, some dates of summer indoor triathlons.
Just a few more.
So stay tuned for that. But triathlon racing season is here. We're getting our local events are starting up. Regional USAT state championship events are coming up. We mentioned these last week, but May 19th is kind of regionally, at least for states within driving distance or easy driving distance, St. Louis Triathlon. And then in Michigan, we have the Grand Rapids Triathlon coming up. And then in Wisconsin, Pleasant Prairie. Then in Indiana, we have a state championship. Down in Louisville, we have a state championship. And then finally, the big one, the Chicago Tri, one of the world's largest triathlons, is this year, I think the first time ever, it's a state championship. It was the club national championship a few years ago. But now at these state championships, they're actually doing state age group championships, high school state championships, and club state championships. So it basically, if you finish near the top of your age group, a higher percentage of finishers at these state championships will qualify for the USA Triathlon National Championships. So you can find all the detail to that. The switchover date is June 1st. So if any state championships that happen after June 1st, you can qualify both for this year's national championships and next year's state championships, national championships as well. So we'll continue to give you guys updates as we hear things from these events and other local triathlons, but stay tuned. We got Leon's Tri and a couple others coming up. So racing season is here.
Yes,
we have begun.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, cool. So anything else Tri related moving forward?
Club updates. I think we talked a lot about Team Danae's just started their training.
Yeah.
Chicago Tri Club just had a monthly social. Their beginner program is rolling. Dare to Try just had their big season kickoff event. So we'll have more in coming weeks for sure. So if anyone has any clubs, any local clubs, coaches, or communities that you want to be featured or events that you're hosting, let us know.
Please let us know.
We'll add them.
Reach out.
Just drop a line.
Yep.
And feel free to come join us on our Multisport Monday and talk more about who you are and what your club's about. We would love to have you provide and promote your information out to the community.
Yeah, and especially clubs that have nice swag items and gear, maybe let us know. We'll plug those for you. Speaking of which, we have our TRI312 gear store up. If you guys want to get some just general gear, we don't have the Tri kits and whatnot on there yet, but this is just for general workout gear that you can get with the TRI312 logo on it if you like. So they'd have sales on, it's a Squad Locker website, I think.
Yep.
And they do discount codes and sales all the time. So stay tuned for those. And if you're getting started with your training season, a bunch of us are TriDot pool school instructors. We got the next pool school coming up. But also TriDot, we now have 2-month free trial links for training plans. So if anyone wants to try an adaptive training plan, it's really the best training plan tool out there for triathletes, I would say, of all distances, but especially if you're training for multiple events and you're trying to figure out, like, how do I train for this half marathon and this triathlon or multiple triathlons? It always gets complicated trying to figure out how to piece your schedule together.
Yeah.
And TriDot is a great tool for that. So you'll see links to that in the description and the show notes for our podcast. But again, if you guys have any questions, any topics you want to see us bring up on the show, any local news, local events, or just random questions that you'd like to see some coaches answer, feel free to email us, coach@tri312.com, or follow or message us on any of the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and it's at TRI312 Triathlon.
And maybe we'll do a dedicated Multisport Monday where we just answer questions from
Yes.
our community.
Yeah,
So.
send them on in, and we'll hopefully hear from you guys then.
All right. So our weekend and Monday wrap up. So I guess the question comes back to how we started. Let us know down in the comments below. What is the best swag you've ever received from a race or an event? Where was it? And was it free? Did it come with the race entry, or did you have to purchase it? So let us. Yeah.
Maybe also not just past event, but what event this upcoming year has the best swag from your point of view.
I will say, like, I'm actually kind of excited to receive our new Ironman 70.3 shirts for Michigan or for us, Wisconsin 70.3.
And I'm doing Louisville 70.3.
And I like the color schemes that they've all have, like their specific color scheme for each race, where there's like a blue and red, or like a little like sort of like a navy and red and gray, which I think is Michigan. So they all look pretty cool. They're pretty similar. But looking forward to that nice new Ironman 70.3 shirt.
And bag.
And bag.
I'm looking forward to
My wife loves the bags.
If you need bags, I've got closets full of Ironman bags. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I think Soldier Field. I can't remember what the design looked like, but I saw their shirt. And I'm like, that looks pretty neat. So I'm looking
so
forward
nice,
to
and you get a stadium blanket as well.
Oh, they brought the stadium blankets back.
Because it's the 20th anniversary.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that makes me feel old. I did the first Soldier
I
Field
did
10
also.
miler, I think.
Oh God. Yes.
All right.
A long time ago. Anywho.
Well, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us for our, let's see, what is this, episode 6? 6, I think.
7?
At least a month or two in now.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us again. Again, please like and subscribe. Let us know any more content that you would like to see from us or with us. But for me, Coach Brian, Coach Joy, and Coach Chris, thank you guys so much for joining. And we'll see you at the next Multisport Monday in Try in the Shy.
Yeah. Try in the Shy.
Okay.
Bye-bye.